All right, welcome to another episode of Why This Beer. Join us as we discuss all the things that make our craft beer scene unique and the people that help sculpt these great brews. I'm Azlan Graves of Main Street Brewing, and as always, joined by Darren Binema of Neighborhood Brewing and Yellow Dog Penticton.
Hello, everyone.
And today, we are not just talking about our beer scene. We're going overseas, international, talking with Chris Lewington of the Modern Brewer podcast. Chris started this podcast just over a year ago, and it's been a resource for myself, for Darren, and many other brewers internationally as far as getting in the weeds and learning how to optimize your brew house, your procurement, and all the things that you probably never thought about. Chris isn't just doing that. He's got Brew Resourceful that he consults on, bring in other, much building off the podcast, and I'm sure he'll talk more about that, and is a well-established brewer in the UK. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, really appreciate it, Azlan and Darren. Yeah, really good to be on here. And it's really funny when you read back those topics, they sound so boring. I swear the podcast isn't quite as boring as that. But I was like, what's your episodes on? I'm like, hot contracting. They're like, wow, man. That's niche. That's niche in a niche. I'm like, that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what podcasts are all about. Niche on niche.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, you've got a good way of making that stuff very captivating and interesting. And it's been a great asset for me going through these episodes. I find I learned so much. And yeah, time to
thanks, man.
Learn a bit more about you, and not just your guests.
I know. I am going to be releasing this on my podcast as well. So this is like, for the people who listen to mine regularly, this is going to be a complete role reversal. It's going to be so unusual.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, I'm quite excited, actually. I don't really talk about myself too often. So this is going to be, quite enlightening of what I'm going to say and how I'm going to be, because this is not the sort of thing I normally rehearse, you know?
You're on the hot seat today. It's great.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start it off with I guess talking about you, getting to know a little bit about your journey in brewing. What was your first exposure? How did you spark your path into the industry?
Yeah. Do you know, just before we got on here, we were talking a little bit about this, and Darren made a good joke. It's like kind of everyone in the industry has a pretty similar in. And I'm probably no different to that. So I did a degree in economics, which I naturally hated because it's really, really boring. Part of my university courses, I had to get like a year in industry. So at that time, it was middle management in a corporate structure. So it was like Shell, IBM, Microsoft, all of these people. And I was like, I do not want to do that. That sounds so boring. Really not for me. I mean, respect for the people who do it, but just not my calling in life. And one day I got this email, and this is quite hard to explain, but basically there was a collaboration between an English pub in upstate New York, and my university. And I mean, try to explain that. I don't even know how it happened, but they sent an email out saying, does anyone want to work in this pub in upstate New York in Rochester? And I was like, yep, that sounds exactly like the sort of thing I want to do for a year. So I went out there. I was just a university kid drinking the cheapest lager I could get my hands on, cheapest cider I could get my hands on. And I had never even heard of craft beer. Didn't even know what it was. And I went out to the States as a 21-year-old and discovered craft beer in this pub. And yeah, I feel like that was just enlightening to see how many people cared about something I'd never even paid attention to. I didn't even know what the 4 ingredients were in beer. And yeah, the beer scene there was, I mean, it was amazing at the time, still is. We always have this like weird analogy in the UK that the US beer scene, or I guess we can probably say the North American beer scene, is 10 years ahead of the UK. It's just been like this thing we've always said. So, back in 2013, the UK brewing scene was getting there. Like the craft beer scene was starting, but it hadn't like erupted yet. I mean, it was starting for sure. And yeah, so all of us who went out there fell in love with craft beer, loved it, and just loved beer as an industry. All the people we met were just so sound. I was like, everyone looks like they're having fun. All the beer reps were coming in. They were all good crack. We met to a bunch of brewers, all really passionate, knowledgeable people. I was like, this is so fun. And you get to have a beer at the end of the day. And I was like, this is great. So yeah, I came back to the UK and I emailed every brewery in the north of England and got 2 responses. And one of them was from Timmy Taylor's, which, by the way, is like, yeah, staple brewery. I mean, they said no, but they were,
but they did reply.
But they did reply, and that was a big moment for me. And
got a reply from the landlord himself.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, basically, they don't have a turnover of staff because they're so good to their people, and they're in Keighley, and they're like, people don't leave here, so you're not going to get a job. I was like, fair enough, thanks for responding. And the other one was from a brewery called Daleside, and that's where I got my first job.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah, I feel
How
like...
about you guys? Do you have any interesting stories of how you got into craft beer, or are we following the same path line here of hated my degree, found an industry that was more fun?
Yeah, Darren, you go first.
Yeah. I mean, very similar stories to you. Of like, I went to school, got a chemistry degree, worked in industry for about 2.5 years doing that, and then at the same time, like around the same time as you, 2013, 2014. Craft beer scene just starting to like grow at that time, outside of like there was a few breweries in Vancouver, but nothing outside of the Vancouver area, and I'd always been like a suburb kid, so I was like, why isn't there no breweries out here where I live? And then so found out about a few breweries that were opening, and kind of just like sent some resumes over or dropped in at a few places in person, and one of those was Yellow Dog in Port Moody, and yeah, basically just worked myself into a job there, and kind of they haven't got rid of me yet.
Yeah. I went to school for nursing, basically because when I first moved to Vancouver, I'd homebrewed a bunch, and I was like, oh sweet, I'm going to be in a place where there's breweries. I'm going to apply to the breweries that exist. This was 2009, and I think at that point it was basically Storm and R&B, and then everything else was like a small brew pub of like one person. So I think I applied to everybody that I could think of, which was Storm and R&B, and both of them were like, no, don't really have room. It's basically us and 2 other people, maybe. And then I went to school for nursing, and I think it was like 2 years later or something, I like had met the head brewer at R&B at one point, Todd Graham at that point, and I was like, I've got room at the brewery if you wanted to like keg wash and stuff. I was like, oh, that sounds sweet. I heard back from like my first nursing job. He's like, oh yeah, just go do that.
Definitely do that.
He's like, do not drop everything and then I ended up down the road working my way into Powell Brewery, washing kegs and working the tasting room there, and incessantly pestering to brew.
Yeah. Do you know, by the way, I'm a terrible home brewer. I don't know about you guys, but so bad. I made some beers that were like truly like impressively bad. I took a stint away from brewing, went back to home brewing, and went immediately back to making bad beer. I made this one beer that had like, it had a taste of like someone had just put a cigarette out in your glass. It was absolutely remarkable. Like, I still don't really know how that happened. It was something, I was devastated at the time, but I look back and I'm like, I've never had that replicated anywhere. But I started out, when I emailed these breweries, I got a job in sales, actually not in the brewery. Yeah. So I had to work my way into the brewery, and I was pestering the head brewer, Craig, with my really bad homebrew. I actually got, this is a great story. I bottled some of the Hefeweizen that I made in, god awful Hefeweizen that I made. I was bottling it in the brewery's like lab, and it was late, and I was like tired and not very good at homebrewing. So instead of measuring like a sugar syrup, I was just spooning sugar into the bottles.
Each bottle,
into each bottle, and like anywhere between like 2 and 7 grams. Just pouring that all in. And I gave it to a bunch of the guys in the brewery, and then like, I don't know, 2 weeks later, one of the drivers, Dave, comes in, and he's like absolutely fuming. I mean, he's like, and he picks me up, like, I was like, and he was like, you gave me some hand grenades. And I was like, what are you talking about? And basically the bottles were just, he's had his wife was home, and these bottles were just going bang, bang, and she was hitting the floor. She didn't know what was going on. His house was painted in brown bottle glass and bad Hefeweizen. And I was like, Yeah, so at that point, I was like, maybe I should retire. But stupidly, they gave me a job in the brewery. So
it was safer for them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, safe for them to keep an eye on him. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you started in sales at your first brewery, and then how did you kind of transition from there to the brew side? Where is it really just pestering them?
I was a lot of pestering. Darren, I'm a bit of a pesterer sometimes with people at work. And I was like, really, I kept going in every day to the brewery. I mean, I was home brewing, so I knew mash tun, lauter tun. I'd been reading a couple of books, so I was trying to flex my knowledge with Craig. And he could see that I genuinely cared, and it's one of those breweries that his dad started it a long time ago as like not a passion, but I guess a passion project, and it handed down to him. So he was a second generation head brewer, and really, really cool place. And one of the guys ended up on paternity leave, but they were really busy. So they were like, we need someone to come in. And it was January. So naturally sales I don't know, it's the same there, but January sales are always pretty poor over here in the UK, generally considered to be pretty poor. So they they were like, oh, do you mind coming in and helping out in the brewery? And I was like, yes, that's the dream. So that's how I got in. And I was washing casks. I was just there to wash casks for 3 months, and I loved it. It's not often. I mean, I couldn't do it now, I don't think. If I wake up I was at the brewery for 6 a.m. It's like -2, -3 outside because it's January. I'm stood outside with a jet washing casks, getting them on, they're loading, and I just loved it. Man. I was just like, and then I eventually got to brew. Then I made my first recipe for them. We went into Wetherspoons, did meet the brewer events at some of the most rascal Wetherspoons pubs in the country. And they were like, who the hell are you? Because I mean, look, you guys, I don't know anyone's looking. I look pretty young now. But at 21, I looked literally 15, like maybe younger. Right. And people were like, why is this kid meet the brewer? It's like, meet the brewer's son. So got no respect for that. But I really loved it, man. And then I was there brewing for, I think it was about probably 6 to 7 months. It wasn't that long. And then the guy had come back from paternity leave. The sales were looking a bit more demanding, and they were kind of looking to pull me back in. Craig didn't want to, but the business wanted to pull me back into sales. And I was like, not happening. Like, this is my calling. This is what I love. Yeah. So I got a job at Thornbridge Brewery after that, which was incredibly lucky. But
cool. Well, I don't know anything about Thornbridge. Azlan probably knows all these English breweries, but I'm very outside of my knowledge of that.
Thornbridge is again, it's actually, it's got a really cool history. Thornbridge, it's one of the original craft breweries in the country. However you define craft, but whatever. Sure. Modern craft breweries. I don't want to upset anyone there, but modern craft breweries. And Jaipur, which is their flagship IPA, is still to this day a very unusual beer for the beer market. It's high in bitterness, which people don't really drink, high in ABV, which people don't usually drink. It's just so flavorsome. One of the original IPAs was just wow, this is packing a punch. Nice. So the guy who co-founded Brewdog worked there at not the same time I did, but before that, and he was helping write that recipe as well. I think, or was a part of that whole recipe design, and then left to go start Brewdog, which then became Punk IPA, which is also one of the staple IPAs, one of the original IPAs in the craft IPAs in the UK as well. So Thornbridge has got a lot of heritage, both in itself, because it's a stately home as well. So it's got a whole bunch of heritage within the company, but then also within the craft beer scene. And I've worked in a lot of breweries, seen a lot of breweries, and for me, they're one of the most quality focused breweries I've ever stepped foot in. And they were, Rob, Dom, and Ben, and at the time Will as well, were just seriously good brewers, really nice, technically good, really quality focused. Had our own lab, doing all our own micro in house, managing our own yeast from slabs, and you worked hard in that brewery. You worked hard, and it was it was a real pilgrimage. It took my development from being a brewer to really beginning to learn the quality aspects of how to make beer, and the consistency and the importance of consistency and new recipe design. Dom and Rob were so good at that, and so it was an amazing experience. They're really well respected in the UK brewing scene. Is that
where you met Will then? Like,
Not that actually, no. But so weirdly, Will. So
Will
Will
was
from
through...
33 Acres.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was there. I don't know if he was there at the same time as me. I think maybe he was. Everyone's calling him Hacksaw Jim Duggan at the time, like the wrestler. But he went to the same pub that I went to in the States, but just a few
that's
years.
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So we actually went. A lot of people in the UK brewing scene came through that weird pub because they were like, they left uni and were like, "Oh my god, craft beer's amazing!" And then they went back to the UK and sort of got careers in it. So actually, a lot of the beer scene came from that. It's kind of funny.
That's funny. That's cool.
We have to do our own thing here. Canada.
Yeah.
Just have our own little beer. All these.
We'll start sending people over to the UK, and then they'll come back.
Yeah.
That's how I finally get everybody making cask ale.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, man.
So with Jaipur, that IPA, I'm kind of curious. Were you guys using like whole cone hops for all your dry hopping and stuff like that? And like, I mean, that's a much more common thing in England than, I don't know anybody in the craft scene here that uses whole cone.
Yeah, it's a lot of people have moved away from whole leaf. You don't see it too often. There are some breweries who still use it in the hot side. I don't know many people who use it dry hop side anymore, if I know anyone in the UK. But the way that Thornbridge makes cask beer, which is really why it's so powerful on cask, especially Jaipur on cask, it's just a sensational beer, is they have a hop back. So the work comes from the whirlpool and it goes through a giant strainer almost, and it has like one of those mixing spray balls, so it's really aggressively agitated. I mean, hot side aeration is a disaster, but it's all over and it's mixing all into these into the whole cone, and then it's not dry hopped. So Jaipur cask isn't dry. Well, it wasn't at the time. I can't vouch for it now, but it wasn't dry hopped. So all of the aroma you were getting was coming from that hot side, which is cool. I mean, it takes a lot of hops. Yeah, it takes a lot of hops, but it's that's what makes that cask beer really unique. Then the keg and bottle beer was dry hopped, so then everything else was dry hopped as you traditionally would, but it still has some loading in that hop. Yeah, with pellets. Yeah, T90s.
I was trying to picture, like, you know, cramming 20 kg a whole leaf into like a 4-inch tri-clamp port and how that would look.
Not that.
Yeah, no, thank God.
I think Sierra Nevada might still be using whole cone dry hopping. Or at least they were in the last like 5 years. Like really,
that was like a big.
That's like part of their
big
thing.
Marketing thing. Yeah. For them.
They have like special tanks, like cold side to do it. I don't know. Pretty wild.
Yeah,
it's definitely like committing to something that's like technology has solved, like already, and I'd be like, no, like we really want that ingredient flavor kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, you probably have the most experience with it, Chris. What would you describe would be the difference or positives or negatives of like pellets versus whole cone? Like, do you find it would change the hop character?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably going to get a lot more vegginess, like, you know, the leaf matter when you're using whole cone. I mean, look, pellets. Everyone here uses pellets for a reason. They're really efficient.
Yeah.
Easy to get in, easy to get out, easy to handle. So and look, the flavor difference, you don't see many IPAs dry hopped with whole cone anymore, but the quantity that you would need to replicate like a 10 gram a liter dry hop of T90s would require so many hops. I don't even know how people would get them out of the fermenter, let alone in. But I don't really know on the flavor side. You're just going to get a lot more vegginess, like you kind of do with any time you put them all leaf in. But for cask beer, you don't really dry hop cask beer with T90s, so a lot of it has to come from the hop side. But people are still using T90s in the hot side here. It's only like, I say traditional, but traditional brewers are probably still using some whole leaf, or probably using a bunch of whole leaf, to be honest. But like some of the old school craft beer companies are still using some whole leaf as well. I know some brewers that still use it in the hot side and swear by it.
Yeah. Whatever works for you. You know, it's hard to change sometimes when you have something that, you know, your brewery's been built on. Like, well, we've been brewing for 35 years this way. Like, seems to be.
And also,
working,
that's your thing. That's your style. That's the way that you make your beer. And I think it's important people stick to some aspects of their tradition.
Yeah. I guess what I'm thinking about it is like, I just saw like Wildflower post about how they, like in Australia, post about how they do whole cone, and they're like a pretty modern brewery. I mean, they are doing like farmhousey kind of beers, and lagers. But so there's probably not a lot of dry hopping. But I was just like, oh, weird. I haven't seen a modern brewery that would be planning to set up to be able to even use that. Like I couldn't use whole cone.
No.
Like even if I wanted to.
Effort, for sure.
Like,
yeah.
Also, it's a lot harder to manual handling on them is a lot as well. We used to get them in these like
storage
vacuum packed bricks like this, and I'd have to chisel them, like literally like hammer and chisel them apart and break them apart so otherwise
they're so frozen.
Just so like they were so together. Like, you get this honestly like this big, this 5 kilo brick, and it was like 20 kilos of that, and it was like chipping away at it. I was like, this is a lot, man. I wish I could just tear a bag and pour it in.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier.
Yeah,
for sure.
So like after your experiences brewing, so Thornbridge, Beavertown, and even a stint in BVI, establishing their only brewery in the British Virgin Islands, which maybe we'll get back to. But what inspired you to start Brew Resourceful? Like I can see so much of brewing is chasing efficiency and tracking metrics. Yeah,
you actually kind of mentioned the intro into it, which is our go-to. So after Thornbridge, I left and went to Beavertown, which was, for the Vancouver listeners who might not know it, I think everyone in the UK will. It was one of the biggest success stories in terms of growth. If that's the way that you define success in the UK beer scene. So when I joined in 2015, we were doing. 2015, we were doing about 24,000 hectoliters a year, and by the time I left, we were doing 200 in 5 years. So it was just a crazy growth. Just going, we saw so much in such a short space of time. It was, what some breweries would see in 30, 40 years, we saw in 4.
Just like tanks are coming every other month, and like
tanks are coming every month. We're building a new brewery. We were contract brewing, volume everywhere. So Neck Oil is the flagship beer, session IPA, 4.3%. Like it's just designed for this market for people to drink pints and pints of. It's actually really interesting. The reason it was so successful is then why Neck Oil was so successful, and kind of still is as a brand, is because it perfectly captured the macro beer drinkers. So we call them like macro lager drinkers here in London.
Yeah.
A big drinking culture after work here. A lot of people go, especially in the city, go for 1 or 2 after, and they were drinking maybe Peroni or some sort of premium lager because, they have money, they're in the city, it's premium lager. And what Neck Oil did was perfectly catch that crowd and start them drinking craft beer. So it was the gateway beer into craft beer. So a lot of people's first experience of craft beer was Neck Oil. And then they sort of move into the, double IPAs, hazies, etc. But it's just, the beer is designed to capture that market. And it was a super successful brand, really cool concept. But we had to make so much of it. And we had a 50,000 hectoliter a year brewery, and we had to make like 150,000 hectoliters of it a year. So we were contracting it in 7 different breweries in 3 countries at one time.
Wow.
And we were brewing that on mash filters, Strain Master. I think it's the last operational Strain Master in the world up at Cameron's.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, check it out, man. It's a rectangle Lauterton. A golden rule in life is nothing efficient comes in a rectangle in brewing. And I can see it. And instead of like Lauter plates, it has a series of like strains or sieves. It has 3 stacks.
Yeah.
And then it has 3 pumps and a wort safe. So it's like basically a giant trough. And it sucks. So you just fill the whole thing with all your mash. You just pump it all with your mash. You don't recirculate, and you just suck through these strains. And then you're supposed to you've cleared all the liquid out the top, sparge on top, cleared all the one out the top. Then you move to the second, and then you move to the third. So it was like the pre-invention of the mash filter, from my understanding. My history of this is not perfect, but from what they told me at Cameron's, it was like the Lauterton was around, but it wasn't particularly seen as efficient. So they designed this. I think it was Mura designed this Strain Master. A bunch of AB breweries ripped out their Lautertons and put in these rectangle boxes, and everyone was like, "Well, this isn't efficient at all." And they were getting nowhere near the efficiency of a Lauterton. They're like, "This is massively a problem." So they ripped all of those out and put in with mash filters, which are insanely efficient. Yeah. So but I think it's the last operational one. It's a thing of beauty. It's like you're looking into it, like how? Who designed this and how? It's incredible.
That reminds me, there's a German brew house design that's like similar. It's like I think they call it like the sea serpent or something in German. So I don't
No
know what it
way.
is. And it's like a series of like kind of similar where it's like you start the mash at the top and then it goes down like these. It's almost like locks, like a river or something like that. It's going down these like successive places and then just getting more and more efficient as it like it's like mini lauder tons every time. So it's just like slowly getting
crazy.
more and more efficient.
I don't know that system. I'm going to Google the
I'll try to
hell
find
out of
it
that when I get
and
back.
send it to you. I saw it at like a conference. It's very, very crazy, and I'm like, wow, it's really cool and a neat way to do it, but just totally different than
Love that.
Yeah.
So we made neck oil on a lot of these things. A lot of different breweries that never dry hop before. Fully automated brewers who'd never dry hop before. Like you don't understand how much of a problem dry hopping causes to people who've never dry hopped. They're like, what do you mean you're putting that in there, and how are we going to get that out? And you're like, yep, great question.
Much beer will be lost.
Yeah. You mean you want me to open the tank?
Yeah. We can't do that. We don't do that here. You're like, okay, well, we've got to figure it out. And then we dry hopped on GA hop stars, manual in the top, torpedoes, like everything, trying to make this beer consistent in different breweries. Or we brewed at Adnams, whose water profile is like super unique. Like super unique water. So that was really fun. Then we had to change all of the process to try and make the beer taste the same. Like it was just, it was. I tell you what, in terms of like an experience, it was pretty much up there. Like trying to make one beer in 7 places. I mean,
that
no
sounds
doubt.
Sounds like a learning experience to say the very least. But like, holy, what a challenge!
It's the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. Yeah, truly awful. I've had some of the worst moments in my career. Sat there with neck oil that I know is bad, and we've got a sales team who've already sold all the kegs, and it's just an immense stress, business defining thing. Like, how do we fix this? How do we do this? And then you got tight schedules, and you got also, do you know what I found the hardest thing was also the personalities. Like sometimes I was walking into breweries with like 5th generation brewers, and it was me as like a 25-year-old going, "Oh, hey guys. Hey, can we do it like this?" And they're like, "Get the hell out of my room." And I'm like, "Oh no, if we do it like this, it would make it do this." And they're like, "No, I'm sorry, no, we're not listening to you." And it was like, "Oh, okay, this is it's not quite as collaborative in some of those big historic breweries as it is outside of this country. Anyways, it is it was in the UK. And, a lot of brewers in the UK, Adnam's amazing. Like walk in, it was great. It's collaborative nature. Like that's right. But then some brewers were just like, "You're not speaking to us about how to make beer. You had a brewery for 4 years. You're not speaking to us about this." So we're like, so it got, that was also really challenging as well, but super fun, man. I mean, I tell you what, you really learn a product and you learn how to make beer when you have to replicate it in other people. I say to so many people, I think contract brewing is one of the hardest things.
For sure,
on both sides. I think it's harder for the contract brewer, someone trying to nail the specs. I think it is a lot harder for them, but it's not an easy thing to get right, and it makes you really understand just how complex beer really is to make, and potentially just how we're still a young industry learning how to make it. Might be a better way of putting it, but it's it's super difficult to replicate in someone else's place.
For sure.
I feel like that's one of the things that like is why I feel like having such an open book and discussions about these things is like, you don't see this in a lot of other industries, but like other craft breweries you go to a brewery, you chat with them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, this is exactly what we do." And I can take that information and there's no way I can repeat it. Like I can have the printout, have the recipe, follow it exactly to scale, and then just like, no, there's a je ne sais quoi, or like
that's it.
It's like, here, it's hard enough to do it consistently within your own brewery, let alone like had someone else take your recipe and do it on their system with their water, their ingredients, their lots of hops, their whatever, how their steam boiler works or doesn't work, and like there's so many different things that make it so much different, right?
So difficult. It's just a good point, Darren. It's like it's really hard to get consistency in your own brewery. Then taking that out of someone else's is it's a lot. So we did that, and then at the same time we were doing that, we then were building the new brewery. It was called Beaver World, which does sound a bit like a strip joint, but I promise, it was like people are, it's like, oh yeah, I'm the manager of Beaver World. They're like, oh no, not like that, I swear. But yeah, we were building Beaver World. We got a Heineken investment, just for the record, for everyone who doesn't know. So there was 49% was sold to Heineken at that time, and it allowed us to purchase a new brewery up in Enfield, so just north of London. Still technically in London, but let me tell you, it doesn't feel like it when you're there. But yeah, it was a big 250,000 hectoliter. I think it's now 500,000 hectoliter a year brewery. So it was a big thing. All Crohn's, all fully automated. Well, basically almost fully automated, apart from some processes. But what we got was we got all the toys, all of the instrumentation. We had in-cell yeast counters. We had everything, inline yeast counters. We had every way to pitch and prop, fully automated brew house. We had a lot of toys. We also had a world-class lab full of equipment. So we really got to learn a lot as a brew team about the science behind our beer as well. So what was causing what, how we can manipulate one thing, and what that data point would then have on all of the others. We had automated fermentations by the end, which is pretty sweet. So we just set and forget, and it was really cool. We're only making a few
take
SKUs.
Tank readings and do your temp rises.
Yeah, so we would do that without, that's still manual checking. So on on gravity, pH, etc. But we would set the cooling effectively it was timed, because we knew by getting all the parameters correct going into the fermenter, we knew by the hour when it was going to be ready to chill, when it's going to be ready for this, when it's going to be ready for that, when it was going to be ready for the diac rest. It was pretty cool. But that's what you get when you get that level of data. So we did a lot, and that's when I then left Beavertown at the whatever year it was now. I think 2021, 2022, whatever we're in now. And then I left to go live in the Caribbean. Yeah, a complete career change. And I went to work on an extremely small brewery on a remote island. It was literally only accessible by boat.
Wow.
Yeah, it was it was a bit of an experience. I mean, I just applied for something online, right? And I got this job. I spoke to this guy on the phone, and I was like, all of a sudden I was flying out to the BVI, and my mates were like, you ever considered that this might not be legit? And I was like, actually, do you know what? No, I haven't actually. It didn't even cross my mind once. And they were like, yeah, man, I think you should be concerned. They were winding me up. They're like, you should be concerned, man. You're going to be like, we'll never see you again. See you later. It's been nice knowing you. All that stuff. And then I land at night, and I meet this guy I've been on the phone with. Never seen him before in my life, because it was just always on the phone, never video or anything. And I was like, all right, he's a nice guy. And then having a couple of beers. But you land in this airport, right? And it's tiny. I mean, it's it's not even an airport. It's like a strip,
landing strip,
and a landing strip, and and it's a propeller plane you take to get there. And we get off, and it's pitch black at night. And we walk down. It's sick. There's a beach bar that's it's called the unofficial departure lounge of the BVI, because basically you can sit there right up until your flight, and it's on the beach. It's on it's this bar on the beach. Wow. It's so cool. So we're there. We're slinging beers, and he goes, all right, let's go to Cooper Island, where this brewery was. I was like, oh, sweet. So we get on the speedboat. 3 guys I had never seen before turn up in this speedboat. I get on this speedboat. It's pitch black, and they don't turn the lights on because I don't think they had a license to drive this boat at night. And so all the lights were off. You couldn't see a thing. And I was like, this could be the moment it'll start to turn a little sour. And I was like, well, at least it's warm and I'm happy, I guess. I've had a few beers.
Could be worse.
Turn up. Yeah, it could be worse, God, yeah. Hoping they keep me on this island forever. But then I turn up at the BV, and it's beautiful, obviously, see the brewery, and it was all good. I mean, it was all fine in the end. So turn up, and then I'm on this brewery, and it's tiny. I mean, we're talking I went from 150 hectoliter fully automated brew house doing 10 brews a day to a 500 liter manual brew house that was it'd been pretty well looked after. The guy who ran it, who bought the kit, who was the general manager of the island, of the resort that was on the island.
Instead of a mayor, they just have a general manager.
Yeah, it was 25 people who lived on this whole island.
Wow.
25 people. And they all worked on this little, there's a rum bar, a beach, obviously a beach, a rum bar, a brewery, a coffee shop, a little restaurant, And so yeah, people just worked and lived there, and like yeah, it's kind of super weird, really. In hindsight, it was really fun, and the brewery is solar powered, obviously, because there's no mains electricity on this island that no one lives on. We had LPG bottles for the gas, but we were using a lot more electric than gas, really, and CO2, etc. We all had to get from the island. But yeah, I was brewing there, and this is what I'm going to talk about. This is why Brew Resourceful, to go full circle,
right?
But like this is why I started Brew Resourceful, really, because
details.
I learned just when you don't have things on tap and you don't have the internet to just order something that will come in the next 3 days to get you out of jail. So if you wasted 20 kilos of hops, you just go out and buy more. Like at the end of the day, yeah, it's a finance hit, but you just do it, and you know the gas comes out the tap, the water comes out the tap, and all of a sudden, I was brewing in a place where this doesn't come out of the tap. We had water reserves, and we had a desalination pump. And if I used too much water, they were going to have to use the desalinated water. I don't even tasted desalinated water, but it's truly one of the worst things. It's totally disgusting. And I was like, I can't brew with this. So we had harvested rainwater. It rains a lot in the BVI, actually. It actually rains more than in the UK, which most people won't believe. But it just rains in stints rather than just eternally raining for 6 months. But yeah, so we had like a big wet reservoir, basically. They dug out these huge pits and were lined underneath. And that was my water for the year. It was not like I could just, and we were going through dry seasons, wet seasons, but sometimes it wouldn't rain for 3 or 4 weeks, and that starts getting low. And if it gets too low, you start bringing in all the junk from the floor of the stuff anyway. But also then you have to bring desalinated water. So it's like, okay, I've got to get really, really good at water usage here, because this is like really important to the quality of my beer. So I became really, really good at water usage. Then things like malted barley. So as I was saying to you guys before, like I could order this from Breeze. They would get it to Miami. I have a guy in Miami who is just a character. I feel like everyone who works in shipping is just a character. It's probably especially if they're in Miami. It's like a double whammy. Yeah. And this guy was like Jesus. He was just a character. Anyway, I wouldn't know if malt was going to land on my island, if it was going to be 2 weeks or 3 months. And there was no way of predicting it. So it's really hard to account for stock when you're and you don't have a storage space for days. You have a small fridge. Right. You store everything in the fridge because of weevils. So we had one small fridge space, and that was it. So we'd completely pack it out. Yeah. And then I'd have to be like, I don't know when to order the next lot. So you got really good at brewhouse efficiency. Because you were like, well, I need to I'm not going to start throwing this malt down the drain here if I'm getting 85%. I need 90% efficiency, 92% efficiency, because it just means I have more time to not get screwed over. So I came really good at that. And then same with electricity usage, because it was diesel generators when the sun went down. So always brewing during the day, making sure that was working, etc. Water, gas, because we had to get all the gas from the island. They ran out of CO2. And they were like, next week, 3 months. Next week. It's next week. And it's like, this has got to be a wind up. It's the whole thing. It's the Caribbean, man. Everyone works on their own schedule. It's not here. No. People aren't just you can't just be like, well, why isn't it here? Because they're like, it's not, get over it. Move on. So it became really resourceful. And I was like, all the things I've learned over Beavertown and working in all these other contract breweries, working at Thornbridge, etc. I managed to do everything in this really small brew house with no data whatsoever, right? So we had no data points. We had I had to buy a density meter. They didn't even own one. I don't know. People who've been brewing with no density meter, no pH meter. It was just so I had to buy all this basic stuff, and I was just
dip your finger in and taste it and be like, yeah, seems about right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what was happening. Yeah, some of the things you see when, I was like, what the? So I just became really resourceful, and I was like, I can take this learning and you can apply this to every brewery in the world, because you don't need CapEx. You don't need, you don't need a team of people. You just need, firstly, you need resources that are limited, then everyone would become more resourceful. But you can also have someone who can just come in and help you and advise you based on the experience that they have. And that's kind of why I started Brew Resourceful, because for me, sustainability has always been reduce what you consume on the most basic, but also the most important level. So if we all just consumed less of everything, we would be in a better place. We can buy smarter. We can, scope 3, we can measure our scope 1, 2, and 3. We can start making better purchasing decisions. Ultimately, if we all just reduced what we consumed, we would be in a much better place than we are now. So it's what I practice and preach in all the breweries I worked in. And then I just came back to the UK and started to hammer that message back, that down. I've refined it a little bit over time. I work much more on sustainability on a sort of a strategic level with breweries, as well as on the process side and the audit side. But yeah, that's really where my sort of passion for this all started out, was just having no resources and a really annoying logistics schedule if I didn't need them again.
No resources and high consequence.
Exactly. Yeah.
So needless to say, you work well under pressure.
Yeah. Under Caribbean pressure, which is like the weirdest pressure you could ever have, because it's like, it's not really
very
pressure.
casual,
it's
but
it's very casual. But it's also like, I mean, it goes both ways, right? Because if people, there's some of the people there, like if I ran out of beer, people are like, no, they run out of everything. No one really cares.
Right. They're used to
Everyone's
it.
just like, everyone runs out of everything because no one imports anything on time. And, it's just kind of, it's a completely different way of life, especially to here in London, where it's just like, everything is right now or tomorrow.
I remember hearing a statistic that I think it was like 7 or 9 liters of water to 1 liter of beer, as like a North American statistic. And then I think Australia, as an example, was around 5 liters was kind of their norm or their benchmark. That was like the reason why they were comparing the two. What do you think? Have you ever been able to track that in a way that makes sense?
Has
what
been
do you think?
meaningful? And if there's like one specialty thing like to focus on, that'd be good too.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're setting me up with this, Azlan, but I'd love it if you were. That's a perfect setup. But basically, I collect all of that data for the UK and Europe. So I have over 100 breweries sustainability data for brewhouse efficiency, water intensity, electricity, gas, and purchased CO2 intensity. So I collect all of that data. I released a report recently. It's like the Craft Beer 2024 Sustainability Report for Europe. So check it out. It's got all of that data in. But I mean, I'll share it with you right now, of course. So in the UK and Europe, it is 6.5 liters to make a liter of beer. Now, what's really interesting is that I think that number should be at 4. I believe that every brewery with the process can get to 4. If you're even if you use water in so many of your processes, because some people, obviously it's difficult because some people are kegging on house or cleaning kegs on house, use a lot of water. Some people are bottling on in-house, which uses like a water rinser.
Rinse water,
so there's some breweries will always be higher than others. That's completely fine. But I feel like I know that the standard can be 4 for every brewery. But there are some breweries who are down at like 2 in the UK, like 2.2 to make to liter, which is incredible. And that's all with process. Like this water is one of the easiest things to get low because it doesn't require you to spend any money. You can do it all with just a bit of a time investment. I mean, the key areas to start is with CIP. Like 40% of your water usage is going straight on your rinsing, both pre-rinsing, post-caustic rinsing, on everything. Fermenters normally is where I see the biggest inefficiency. A really good tip, just straight off, always burst rinse over continuous. So a lot of brewers will set, let's say, post-caustic rinse 200 liters or a minute, whatever their parameter is, and they'll just leave it on for a minute. It's really inefficient. So if you can just you change that to 5 seconds on or 10 seconds on, off, wait for it to drain out and go again, you'll get much cleaner caustic results and much quicker and with a lot less water. So tricks like that. Automated brew houses. Anytime you buy anything, any piece of equipment that uses water, so if that's a keg washer, which is a great example, a brew house that has automatic flushing, the commissioning engineers or the programmers who design these, their goal is not your water efficiency. And I'll tell you that for free. Their goal is to make sure that they have got every fail-safe in, that they don't leave any residue of caustic. So if what should take 20 liters, they'll do 120. Should take 50, they'll do to 300. Because that's their prerogative, and that's what they're there to do, which is fine. And during commissioning, it's difficult to become an efficient brewer. You're never going to be an efficient brewer during commissioning, but it's your role as the brewer to then go in and look and check all of these parameters, bottle rinsing. Anytime that water is being used by a machine that has a program, you have the opportunity to make efficiency savings.
Yeah.
I've seen it in every brewery I've worked in.
Yeah. I remember specifically, like, with our keg washer, when we got ours in, we got like a semi-auto 2-head from Crew, and being able to like just test the rinse water on each cycle, like we would just, e-stop it at the post, and then just like dial it back 5 seconds, and then like keep doing that until we found a point where they're like, oh, okay, there's still a residual amount of caustic, or
Right.
And knowing that like our paracetic acid rinse would neutralize as long as we were monitoring that. But yeah, I remember we were able to knock 15 seconds off like each rinse cycle from what the factory settings were.
Right.
And
exactly.
that, like, I mean, the awesome
per keg,
thing
that's huge.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah,
and
that's the thing. Yeah, time and
not
money.
not only is that like our the water we're using, but that was just the cycles. Like we were knocking off 30 seconds off of our keg wash cycle. So
yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a big thing with brewing all the time. I feel like it's chasing those little efficiencies. Once you get to a certain point, it like never tires.
Yeah,
it never stops.
Yeah,
but you're right though. It's when you get there for a lot of these like fine tuning efficiencies is when you get there. One of the reasons that I started the whole benchmarking report is because sometimes it can be a bit daunting for a brewer to think, where can I find this? Everything I can look at anything. Make a small efficiency gains. But with benchmarking, what you do is you identify your brewery's biggest opportunity to save. So if your water is at 6.5 liters to liter and your gas is at like 45 kilowatt hours to make a hectoliter, but your electricity is at 50 kilowatt hours to make a hectoliter, and the industry standard is at 25, you now know you've got the biggest opportunity. Just focus on electricity. It's where your biggest rewards are going to come from. So it allows you to focus a little bit and cut out some of that noise and just be like, okay, let's spend a month focusing on everything that's using electricity that we can use to save. And then you can move to water, then you can move to other things, because it's really easy to just get lost in the world and go around making small changes here and small changes there. And you never really know what's worked and what hasn't. Whereas if you can measure and benchmark, then you can see, and then you can actually calculate, okay, wow, we just saved £10,000 this year, or 10,000 Canadian dollars this year. And you're like, oh wow, that's a lot, and then we can use that to go into something else. And I feel like that's a really important part, that just not to get too lost in the micro efficiency changes and just try to find a focus.
Yeah, like benchmarking, like overall processes and like overall resources, like those major ones like gas and water, electricity, and then I guess your inputs like malt and hops. Are there like any tips you've found like on getting better like mash efficiencies or like lower hop losses for maybe brewers that might be listening to this podcast in our region, kind of the small to micro size?
Yeah, of course. And I do a lot of work on brewhouse efficiency. So for UK brewers, I can't see why it would be too different elsewhere, but malt or malted barley is your single biggest product emitter. So it's the biggest contributor to your carbon footprint as a single product. So it's almost 10% of your entire brewery's emissions are just from the malted barley. So there's a really big environmental impact and trying to reduce that. And I've seen breweries who have brewhouse efficiencies ranging from 75% all the way up to 92% on small kits, that is. I mean, they can go right up to 99 and above, but I'm talking about craft breweries kits, very manual. You can get them up to 92, sometimes a little, squeeze them up to 93, 94. There's a lot of opportunity there. Mash efficiency is, I mean, a lot of people will be buying in milled grain. So you're already not a disadvantage, but you don't have that control. If you have a mill, you have a lot of opportunity to instantly, it's so easy. We always joke, it's like, go in, change the mill settings, 3% efficient, and it's just like easy as that. It's just tightening the mill up and making sure the outering isn't getting stuck or your work quality isn't getting poor. But actually, if you've got like a single infusion mash tun, it's pretty difficult to do that. Those you can just keep going finer, get some sieves, or actually just go to the malt supplier and ask them. They always have sieves, or they'll just do the analysis for you. Yeah, like you don't have to buy them.
Azlan and I are laughing because usually no one has sieves except for one guy in town, and then you just we used to have that in Port Moody. You're like, someone owned. I don't know if we owned the sieves or someone else did. And you're just like, who has the sieves? Like within like 5 breweries down there.
So
like,
good.
Like, I really to this guy. And
I'm really sorry, everybody. If you're looking for the RAR BSG sieves on the West Coast, they're currently at Main Street.
There you are. Busted.
That's the thing, right?
These are
types of equipment.
Find it up.
These are the types of equipment that can just be shared around. You don't do it on every batch, so just share it around. I completely agree. It's great. That's really cool.
Yeah, someone buys the grain sieves, someone buys the like barrel racking cane, all the stuffs you rarely use. I always say, I'm just like, that always works for me at least.
So and then you just tighten the mill, the easiest way, doughing in, mash hydration. Like really, really important to get that right. Don't skimp on that. You can get really good mixed mash with a mash mixer, just hand mixing. But that's the important step. Those are the 3 important steps in the mash.
Nice.
I was going to say one of our metrics that we found in our mash efficiency very recently was we had started to trend to a thicker mash hydration because I had read some article about how historical English brewing, you'd get more body with like a 2.4 to 2.2 like liters per kilogram. So I started to do that for a lot of our beers. And then with our crop year change and the plumps getting much smaller, our mill gap was not fully cracking the grains. So all of a sudden, like literally within 2 weeks, our mash efficiency just dropped to like 70%. And I was like, what is going on? Combination of finding up the mill and increasing our hydration. And all of a sudden we're like back to and exceeding where we were before.
Nice.
Great.
And it's like one of those things that the easy thing to do would have just been to add another bag.
That's
like
that
that does happen a lot. But like with a little bit of honing it in, you can like get back to where you were and then improve on the process. Like
for sure.
And it goes back to like, if you don't have the resources, you can't do that. So if you can get in that mindset of like, you can't just throw another bag in because you don't have it. So you have to find the way to squeeze it out. Like that's kind of how. That's really good though, man. Yeah. And it's good that you keep. That's a really good point as well. I feel like get to know your malt, like read those COAs, know when the batches are changing, know when it is. Like there's loads of resources out there on how to read a COA, and every brewer should be able to go down the COA list and be like, I can tell you what every one of those means to my beer, and not everyone can do that, but they should be able to, and it's an important part.
I found like it being very daunting. Like I don't have a formal education in brewing, and looking at COAs the first time and just being like, I don't know what this means.
What is
like,
the friability index? No one knows that.
But like for people that are trying to like maybe we're in a similar boat as me, like I found comparing your like 7/64 size, and if that's starting to go down, then you need to probably find your mill up.
Is that the highest bump? Your biggest thickness, and then I also like your fines. If your fines are high, you're gonna have a bad time.
You're gonna have a bad time.
Had that with one silo fill. You're like, this is not good.
It's really difficult for us to compare malt specs as well, because we have a completely different. You use the ASBC as your as your set of parameters, and we have the IOB, and then also we have sieves at different dimensions. Because I remember listening to the NBA podcast, and I was like, really good one, and I was like, and I was trying to like get it to relate to what I was doing, and I was doing all these weird calculations for the stupid metrics that were different, metric and imperial system. I was like, nah, man, I'm just going to sack this up. I'm going to call a malt supplier and to ask him what they say.
Yeah, totally.
Like, like,
and that is the other thing too, is like lean on your suppliers. They are more than happy to help and like provide that stuff. Like,
and if they're not, find a better supplier.
Exactly.
They're literally their job. So do lean on them for those things too.
Yeah.
Well, you were here recently. You were on the West Coast recently, visiting. I think you dropped in on Azlan there, and
I did,
and some friends, I guess, as well. I guess, what similarities did you find between the English beer scene and the BC beer scene, and then like what differences or trends did you pick up while you were here?
What was your favorite Yellow Dog beer, and was it one that Darren had a hand in?
Yeah, that's it.
You can test me. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Yellow Dog, went to Port Moody. The first night I got there, absolutely amazing, man.
Oh, nice.
Like really good. Yeah.
Good.
Really loved it. I went to the place that had I'm so bad with names of the Detroit style pizza up the road from there.
Rewind.
Rewind. Yeah.
Rewind. That's it. I was going to say play. No, rewind. Wrong button. Yes. Yeah, so we went to Rewind first, and we went to Yellow Dog, and it was absolutely sick, man. I could stay there all night. I really loved it.
Nice.
I think the beer is amazing. I think one of my a guy who used to work with at Beavertown used to work at Yellow Dog. Ian.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he was the Irish Ian.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember.
We've had a few off the rock actually come through Yellow Dog.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah.
It's really good, man. I loved it. Thought it was great. I mean, the beer scene's pretty. I don't know. It's hard to describe what necessarily the similarities would be outside of just the global beer trends. We all see each other. We all have the same news. We all read the same things. So the hazy IPAs. I saw a lot of rice lagers, which I really appreciated. Which we didn't have. We don't have a lot of rice lagers over here. To be honest, there's a few, but not many. But yeah, I think I always notice the differences more than the similarities. I think it's what I really love about the Vancouver beer scene is it feels like, and I just from being in there for a few days, but it's like a lot of breweries really concentrated in areas. Yeah. So it really feels like there's a brewery on every corner. Like I was walking around, I was like, there's breweries everywhere. It's actually like, I think there's less in Vancouver than there is in London. I would not have said that after being there. I was like, it's so cool, but it really really makes you feel like you're in a part of a community, which I really like. And I imagine a lot of you guys are really close and tight. And it's cool that you're sharing equipment and stuff, because we do that here in London and in the UK, more in London and the UK because of it's being a city, but still not that many breweries. It's all still scattered around. It's a very big city, London. So there's lots of places that might have 1 or 2, 3 breweries, but no, I've never liked the concentration that I saw. It was so cool. I really love that. The brews are really clean, and I love the whole tap room attached to it. I'd say that we've copied that from the North American beer scene back in the day. Breweries didn't really have too much of a tap room. It was normally a complete afterthought, like a couple of tables outside on a Saturday. Whereas it feels like whenever I was in all of these places, it was like, this is designed to have customer experience, to have people going into the tap room. And then there's a brewery there as well, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, more so now than ever, I think. Like, people are really focused on their tap room. Like that's where people's resources and time and investment seem to be going these days, and for good reason too, because it's just now like the level of beer is up there, like where it's I think everyone's like, you need good beer to survive in the beer industry. And it's like, well, there's a part where you do need to make good beer, but at the end of the day, if no one wants to sit in your tap room, like it's not going to help.
They're having 1 4-ounce taster and leaving.
Yeah, right. Like it'd be really good. But there's less people seeking out specialty beer these days. So
I think that's definitely
for sure.
And that's definitely a similarity here in the UK. The market's matured everywhere, I guess, the sort of craft beer market. And, customer experience is really important, especially in tap rooms. It's just sometimes we're so tight on space. I'd say like at least 70% of the breweries in London are in railway arches. So like
Oh,
old
wow.
railway arches. So like these things, you wouldn't believe the things
Yeah, like
people
isn't
cram
like
in
the
there.
the
Oh,
the
man.
Colonel is in one of those spots,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
there like a couple breweries right in that area?
Yeah, it was cool. It's called the Bermondsey. It's kind of changed a lot now, but it used to be the Bermondsey Beer Mile. So it's like basically a mile of railway arches, and a load of them used to have like small breweries in, but a lot of them have moved away now because they got very expensive to rent. But
Right.
that's a whole different thing. But yeah, it's like we have either like railway arches, which are cool, but they're not beautiful, and then it's that, or they're in like industrial parks,
Yeah.
which are the opposite of beautiful. So
Yeah.
I did find that a lot of the beers, a lot of the tap rooms and breweries I was going to, that really beautiful. I was like, this is so nice to be here. Like it looks and feels like a brewery. Whereas a lot of the time it feels like a railway arch that someone's crammed a brewery in here.
Right. Yeah.
People are doing a really good job now. And like the vibes are really good. But yeah, I really love how just like pristine they look from the outside. It's just like, this is cool. I really liked it.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of beer styles, I mean, I think we talked about this, Aslan, when I was over with you. But it's like the two things that always, when I'm traveling abroad, drinking beer and craft beer in different countries, the two things that always stick out is ABV and bitterness. So here in the UK, we're taxed on ABV. So if your single product is X ABV, you have to pay more beer duty. And then therefore the customer has to pay more, the pub has to pay more, people drink less. So anywhere between sort of anything north of 5% just starts to look a bit too much for this market.
What are your tiers? Do you know?
It's changed over the last year. So how it used to be was it's like 2.5% up to 5.4, and then from 5.4 to 7.2, and then anything north of 7.2 was taxed exceedingly heavily. They've now changed that slightly, so I think it's now done on ABV of product. So it's like slightly different. Yeah, it's slightly more linear to my understanding, but I mean, beer duty is complex and really boring.
We won't quote you on it. It's fine.
Yeah. I don't need to know it anymore, but yeah, I think that it's around there. But basically, it means that people pay more for higher ABV beers, so we generally drink less. And also, it's like a cultural thing in the UK. It changed now, maybe, but people just love to sit in the pub and have pints, like pints and pints and pints. Yeah. And they don't want to drink 6 pints of 5.5% because it's just there's just not going to be
That's not good for anybody.
It's not good for anybody. No, they want to be able to have like 6 pints and be like on the edge. So that's why, like, historically, dark milds was a really popular style, because back in the day it was like from all day people would be in the pub from like 5 until 11, just in the pub drinking. They just didn't want to be totally annihilated by the end. So I always notice the ABV always sticks out for me. And then you always see beer styles like, IPAs like comfortably above 6%, which you just don't see really in the UK on a beer lineup. Rarely. I mean, a tap room you will, but they don't sell as well. I don't think everyone knows that. And then there might be in 2/3 or whatever. So I always think ABV always sticks out because it feels more freeing when you can kind of brew a beer style to the ABV that you like, or that it should be, rather than what the duty tells you should. And then the big one is always bitterness. I don't know how many other countries are like us, but we do. People in this country just do not like bitter beer in general.
In the UK,
in the UK, absolutely not. Like the common beer drinker despises bitterness. Like honestly, to the point of like you would never be able to sell on a big scale anything north of 40 IBUs. I don't think.
And
on a big
is
scale.
IBUs usually listed?
No. I don't think anyone in the UK would know what an IBU is outside of I don't even think, on recollection, I see any tap room put IBUs on. Right. It was a bit of a fad for a while.
Place.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fad for a while, and then it just kind of dropped off, because I think UK beer people like, what is an IBU?
Yeah.
And then it's like, and I think, as we all probably agree, it's a really bad indicator of bitterness. Actually, it's just it's often just a calculated value from a spreadsheet. It has nothing to do with it. It has very little to do with the overall bitterness that you perceive as the person
100%.
Who's drinking the beer.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot more diversity in beer styles as well, I feel like. I don't know if that's just because of the UK beer drinking crowd. It's a slightly saturated market, as people are saying, and I think beer drinking trends are changing a little bit here in the UK, and people are just trying to make, a lot of people are trying to make like a really good session IPA, really good things that are going to sell a little bit volume. You maybe turn down a little bit some of the different stuff, but yeah, I think it was but overall the beer standard was really, really high. I thought it was excellent in Van. I really enjoyed it. I also went up to, when I was in Whistler, to see my friends after
Nice.
a couple of days I had in Van. We
Nice.
Blue Coast Mountain.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Coast
Martin.
Mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually somebody
really
I was
good.
thinking to reach out to get on the podcast here. He's from Chile and like learned all of his brewing stuff. Yeah. The head brewer there. Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Beers were excellent there. Cool tap room as well, of course. Great part of the world.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beers were really good there as well.
The vista is nice. You look out the window. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And also, where did I go to? That was a really cool place. It was in Pemberton.
Oh yeah. I've never been there.
The beer farmers.
Yes. Thank you.
Like
Great
way up
knowledge,
Pemberton
Azlan.
Valley. Yeah.
Yeah. That was so cool, man.
And I think they actually they do one beer seasonally now where they're using 100% their own barley, which is
that's so cool.
Pretty insane. And they use primarily either their hops or hops from Myrtle Meadows, which was just like a little further up. So there's a Pemberton hop farm up there. That's pretty great.
That's awesome. Yeah, that place was really cool. Like middle of nowhere sort of vibe. Really liked it. Yeah, as a total tourist, that's the sort of thing you dine out on, really, isn't it? Pretending like you're not a tourist. It's so it is.
That's cool.
For anybody who hasn't had the Myrtle Meadow stuff, they do BC grown sots, which is really cool, and has like this neat, I don't know, kind of accentuated lemony note. But
nice.
Yeah.
Love
Definitely.
that. Do you reckon? I've got a question for you guys. If I was to come back, what would be the 3 beers that you would recommend me try? Not from your own brewery, sadly. You have to cut those out.
I guess the next 3.
So, I mean, Brassneck has a beer with that Myrtle Meadow sots. That actually, I think we may have had it that night.
I think we did, yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a really cool beer. It's a terroir project. It's cool.
Yeah.
Can't get that anywhere else. That's
one. That's a good story
Darren?
as well.
I mean, as someone that just came back from Vancouver Island, I think like there's 2 beers that are like very quintessential BC beer industry would be like Driftwood Fat Tug, which is like a big, bold 7% IPA. And they make a ton of it.
Yeah.
It's a tugboat. That's he's just smiling.
Love that.
And then Hoyne Dark Matter, which is just like a staple dark beer that is like all over Vancouver Island. If you're on the island, they're very like
commonly on the coast as well.
Oh yeah, it's all over BC, I should say. But like, you cannot go to a place on Vancouver Island like without seeing Dark Matter on the menu. It's just because like that's the standard dark beer there.
Awesome.
Definitely those 2.
I must say, like, my favorite brunch drink is a pint of Fat Tug with like a sidecar of grapefruit juice.
Wow, it's an aggressive order.
I mean, hey, people are drinking mimosas. Like, this is my like little adaptation, or like double Caesars next to me. Like, I'm just like, and this isn't. I go for brunch occasionally, guys. Like, it's not like every Sunday I'm lining up.
There we go.
Yeah. I mean, we're very blessed in the sense that like our beer industry has matured in a way that we're all making way better beers than we were, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think having an open book has really helped us all improve in that sense.
Yeah. I agree so much. Like, the UK beer scene's grown so well in terms of quality. I actually think the quality generally here is really, really high now. It's very comparable to a lot of other places. We always used to look over to the States with like glossy eyes. Like, oh my God, the beer is so amazing there. And, in my last few trips to the State, the beer is good, but I think it's on par with the UK. Sometimes UK beers, maybe even in some situations are better. Like, I feel like that's kind of nice because it means that everyone's doing the same thing. The same in Van, right? Like the beers were as good as the UK, as good as the States. I feel like it's kind of come to a level now where everyone's fairly similar. Some breweries obviously doing amazing. Some breweries like who are still just starting out. So there's a bunch of that, but I really agree. But the biggest superpower we have as an industry, not just locally, but as a whole craft beer industry, is our collaborative nature, that open book. Like no other industry has so unique. No one does what we do. And the people who are outside the industry I speak to about this, and they're like, you have people coming on your podcast talking about NPD, like new product development. I was like, yeah, they're telling them how to do it. They're like,
Yeah.
that is ridiculous. Like, but this is why, in the space of 15, 20 years, we've gone from making, probably distinctly average beer to world-class beer as a standard, because we've done this together, and like everyone's sharing, everyone's like learning, everyone's like challenging each other. It's so cool, man. I think it's such a good thing to be a part of.
Yeah. It's that idea of like a rising tide floats all boats or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely felt like that early days of craft beer. I was like, we're all up against the man. So it's like, we might as well, collaborate, to help each other. Right. And yeah, I was lucky enough to be in Port Moody and see every brewery there open in the span of like 8 years. We went from 0 breweries to 5 or 6 now. I can't even count really how many are there,
and like sizable
and
breweries
it really
too.
made it like a destination, right? Like there was no one there. Like I used to work in the tasting room at Yellow Dog, and people would come in and they'd just be like, what are you guys? It was new in the craft beer scene. They're like, yeah, we make beer. And they're like, cool, I'll have a Rickard's Red. And I'm like, well, we actually make our own beer here. Like there was zero concept of, or very low concept of like what a craft brewery was to begin with. Like often people would be like, oh, have you, like they thought we had invented flights. I always tell people. It's like, no, the other places have these. Like, they're like, wow, this is so cool.
We invented flights.
Yeah, it's like, wow, yeah, you can have 4 beers. And at the time we had 4 beers. So I was like, perfect. You can have all 4 and enjoy. And yeah, it was, and then like literally 3 years later, there's 5 breweries and each brewery has 10 beers on tap. And now you have 50 different beers to try between all these breweries in like 5 blocks. Like
everyone's
that
wondering
kind of growth.
why you don't have a s'more stout on, because the other place had one.
Yeah, that's when I lose my patience. Like, oh, you don't have this, eh? Like, sorry, like you're just gonna have to deal with one of these other 10 to 15 beers instead. Yeah.
Do you guys? So in Vancouver, is the amount of breweries growing or declining, like year on year?
Definitely in Vancouver proper, it would be not growing, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think in the past, I don't know what the metric is, but in the past 2 years, we've seen a lot of breweries kind of have to close their doors, and it's hard to see, and some of them maybe like it's either older breweries that have gone through a huge growth spurt and then are kind of bring their walls in a bit and reassessing how they're going to do it, or
a lot of the growth in the last 5 years has been like outside of the major cities into like smaller towns, like where I live.
Interesting.
And so just kind of like places that didn't have a brewery and now there's one, or they had one small brewery and now there's 2, that kind of thing. A lot of growth there, whereas Vancouver it's just so expensive. The real estate is, I mean, it's expensive everywhere, but the real estate it's an even harder business to kind of swing, I feel like, these days, especially when some of the clientele for craft breweries are also moving out of the major cities because it is becoming hard to afford, right? So it's that kind of like transition. I feel that's kind of my own view on it. And then the other class of breweries that's closing that I've seen, or not even closing, but like changing hands often, is those that opened in like 2018, 2019, because they just had a real rough go where they, probably just scraped by and opened up their brewery in 2018, 2019. And then ever since then, like they went into COVID in their first year. If they opened a small brewery, which many people did, and they didn't have a canning line, it was hard to pivot. And they just didn't know what was going to happen. That uncertainty was tough to deal with. And then interest rates on top of that just went through the roof. So like all these things combined, and then Azlan knows like our malt went up like 20% during that time period, if not more. And so there's just like a lot of continuing factors that really didn't set up people for success in that kind of era of breweries. And breweries opening now in like 2024, 2025, like have that kind of perspective now where like,
keep things tight and
things
small.
have already increased. So starting to see
Brilliant.
some declines for sure, but still some openings too. So it's hard to see.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's very similar to the UK, actually. Yeah, very similar.
I think I feel like, I mean, we'll see, but with potential tariffs and things like that coming in, like, I don't know if you guys did this, Darren, but like we just drew down our remaining year's contract in order to avoid a potential 25%.
On
and
hops,
right now, on hops, and right now New Zealand hops are looking pretty tempting.
New Zealand.
So there might be a trend in New Zealand and Australian hops replacing them. Like a lot of.
I actually hadn't considered that. Because you're going to get a lot of it from the Yakima Valley, aren't you? So that's is there going to be a tariff, or is it just potential?
Well, no one knows anything. This is we're kind of dating the podcast a bit right now, but
that's true.
So by the time this comes out, who
never
knows?
Do that.
But at the time of recording, like we're on the verge of, I think, the third round of threats of tariffs, because none of them actually are in place till April 2nd. And so and so technically, like, we don't know what's going to happen. They could not actually go into effect, but I think we've also done similar things where we've taken our suppliers, like, said, hey, like, we're willing to sell you hops with longer payment terms. If you want to ship them up. I also know that all those hop suppliers have very, very, very full warehouses. So
they're eager to get it out.
Very eager to get it out. So it's a kind of a
maybe slightly beneficial for them.
Yeah, for sure. But it's very good that they're offering that as well, for sure, to Canadian consumers and our customers. So that's been good. And it's can tariffs are definitely looming as well. Canada produces a lot of aluminum and sells a lot of aluminum to the United States, and that will be tariffed. And then the cans that we buy back from the States will be tariffed. And so that's good. It's good at 50% increase probably.
That's crazy.
So we will see about that.
We're all going back to glass bombers.
Yeah, bring it back. Do you think there's like, I mean, again, I don't know if we should really be dating this podcast, as you said, Darren, but do you think that because there would then be a lack of competition, let's say, from American breweries coming over, do you think that would help bolster the beer drinking market in Vancouver, or it won't really make a difference?
I mean, the silver lining is that potentially we'll have more interprovincial, ease of interprovincial distribution. I mean, could be a positive, could be a threat. I mean,
it probably depends on each province and how they view it. But like right now, like as Azlan's saying, it's not a lot of like, it's not very like free trade even within our own country of Canada.
Yeah, that's mad.
Like, there's literally different drinking ages in different provinces, and for us to sell to Alberta, it's like a lot of hoops to jump through. Ontario, just like forget about it.
Really?
Don't think about it.
Unless
you're some of the bigger BC producers, but
it's funny in a lot of ways. It's like, man, I know more about like the beer scene in the UK than I do about like Manitoba.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
like there's not
crazy.
Not much. Like that's a positive though too for Canadian beer in a way. Like it's been very hyper local always. Like BC beer is like, when you go see the craft beer section, it is like dominantly like 95% brewed in BC. You go to Alberta, it's like a whole new shelf, like 95% Alberta beer. So in a way, like that has created a really cool industry. Like if I go travel to Calgary, I'm like, wow, these are all beers I've never tried before, and like that makes it unique.
Yeah.
But like as a bigger producer, it's definitely frustrating sometimes that it's less competitive as well. So if those some of those barriers were lifted, it would definitely be interesting for sure. Yeah, we don't have like a ton of we don't have a ton of craft beer coming from the States to BC at least.
Yeah, not anymore.
No.
It used to be a lot. That was the big focus, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
was a time and period where people were importing a lot of beer from the US. I think it's probably, as we talked about, it's probably just the quality aspect. You know, the quality was really high. Importing over, people thought it was really cool. And then by the time it got imported, especially if it's got to come over on a boat, by the time it's got here, it's oxidized. I mean, I don't think I had a fresh American beer ever. I don't think anyone in this country has. It's always so oxidized. And then, you know, then you're competing against fresh beer that was made locally. There's no competition. So then, I think a lot more.
For those new to the craft beer industry, like kind of as we start winding down, or just starting in the industry, what advice would you share for them?
What a lovely question. I mean, we already kind of spoke about one of the things, but it's that collaborative nature, right? I feel something we need to keep passing down to people. And we did go through that phase where you basically could open a brewery and you were making money. And now it is, I don't want to use the word competitive, but it's definitely more, there's more people fighting for less space, I guess. So I don't want to lose that collaborative nature. So any advice I would be is like, that is our, as we said before, but that is our superpower as an industry. And we're never really competing with each other. We're competing with the much larger chunk of beer that we're trying to get people to drink. So trying to people move away from the big macro products and drink craft and drink local and drink independent. Like that's kind of what we're ultimately set out to achieve as an industry. And we don't want to forget that. So I think that's something that's really important, to always just drill down and not let that slip. Even when things look like they're more competitive and there's less, it's less like a free for all, really, like it was in 2016 here for sure. The other thing I'll say is that I try not to have many regrets in life, because I just don't think that it's just a bit of a waste of energy to worry about the things you should have done better, because things always lead you down your path. But one thing I do regret in my career is not networking enough. When I was in my different positions, I was very much like, I'm just going to stick to what I do, you know, stick to the people I know, etc. And I didn't leave the brewery to go network too much, which is obviously a complete far cry from what I do now. But yeah, I really regret that, because you not only do you get to know more people in the industry, opens so many more doors for you in the future. And if you ever want to do something for yourself, or if you ever want to make a big job switch, like having a network and people who know who you are is really, really important. But also you just get to, like, we talk about the collaborative nature, but you just get to learn so much of people. And, you know, suppliers, going to different trade events, just sharing knowledge, like, and also just bouncing ideas off people, etc. I think is really, really like important. So for anyone who's starting out, like, you can be really easily get bogged down in the networking aspect of it. I used to honestly just hate it. It was like, just really didn't want to do it. But ultimately, it was always good for me. And I really wish I'd done a lot more of it, because it would have accelerated me a lot quicker when I first started out. You know, I basically had to start from ground zero on networking side. So I think that always just say to people, just get out there and do it. Like, even if you're not big keen on it, just get out and do it, because it's good for you.
It's like your local conferences, your like brewery meetups or things like that. Just like, it's like, even if the lectures aren't like geared exactly towards you or whatever, it might stimulate another conversation. And it's the conversations lots of times you have in between. Like, they're just like great meetups with your community, and like, you know, get the things flowing. I think that is a very valid
and
point.
Also network with sidewoods industries as well, or macro breweries. So there's like here in we have like the CIBD now. It's just been called the IBD for many years, but it's mainly attended. Those things are mainly attended by big brewers, like big family brewers here, and like big breweries. Like, that's amazing. As a craft brewer, to go get to speak to someone about what they have to manage in a day. Like, I remember doing that and being like, it's one of the best valuable experiences. I was like, that's incredible. Like, okay, and then can I apply what they're doing to what I'm doing? And, it opens up so many doors. So there's also different industries across, like, sideways industries, wine, cider. Like, there's so many things you can go check out and just turn up to an event. We're always going to be happy to see you and kind of just like learn from what what other people are doing. I think it's would be a really good thing to do from day one.
Nice. Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, I kind of skipped over it actually. You were you just presented at BeerX in Liverpool. Was that your first time presenting there?
No, it was. I presented there last year. So what was it? Brew Resource has been 2 years. Yeah, I presented there last year and then presented there this year as well.
Nice.
So it's this, for people who don't know who SIBA are, it's the Society of Independent Brewers and Associates. Basically, it's our trade lobby group for they represent the craft brewing sector on a government level. So they lobby various ministers, etc., and get in. They're really nice, really good group. They've done some good things on beer duty. Beer duty is so archaic here. So they've been trying to fight that for so long. They got like the small brewers relief, so small brewers pay less duty than a macro brewer. It's totally reasonable. So yeah, they've done a lot of good work. They're now trying to like sort of redefine. We've never had a definition of craft beer in this country ever. It's not like the States. I don't know if Canada has one, but we've never had one, like an official definition. So they're now trying to define like independence rather than craft, because there's been a few breweries who were independent, who are then sold but dominated the market, and they don't want people to associate effectively Heineken with an independent craft brewery, because they're not the same thing, but they're kind of masquerading as it in some extent. So that's what they're kind of standing up against at the moment. That's their big campaign. But they also do a lot of stuff for their members, etc. And one of the biggest beer events in the whole of the UK is called BeerX, and they run that and host that. Where a load of brewers go down. It's really good fun.
And your presentation, is there, like, I assume it's kind of on sustainability, Brew Resourceful, and kind of what you do with that. Is there a place that if people are interested, they could watch it online, or?
Sadly not, but what the presentation was actually about was I am doing some work with SIBA and the University of Nottingham, who have a really amazing brewing program here. And the three of us are collaborating to write a sustainability guide for SIBA members. So there's about 350, 400 breweries here in the UK are SIBA members, so they'll get access to this guide. But there'll also be some stuff that we talk about that is accessible for anyone. So if anyone's interested, follow me on LinkedIn. It's generally where I post a lot of my content. I do have an Instagram for the Modern Brewer podcast, which stuff does go on, but I'm much more of a LinkedIn person than Instagram at the moment. And then, so I'll be able to share some of the stuff that comes out on that guide. Obviously can't share the full guide unless it's a member, but I can share a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, because it's really important that, and the guys know at SIBA very much like this is important for the industry. So we're announcing the work on that, which is really exciting. We're doing like a top 10. So we talked about the first 5 things we're going to be talking about, and we kind of opened it up to the floor to be like, what are your biggest wins? What are your biggest concerns with sustainability, and how can we help alleviate them with the second part of the guide?
Nice. Cool. Sweet. Well, we'll post links and stuff to all the Brew Resourceful stuff on our socials as well. And
awesome.
I don't think
we do likewise.
Help spread the gospel.
When you're not working on the Modern Brewer podcast and Brew Resourceful, how do you spend your time?
That is a lot of my time, not gonna lie. I also have because I have some sort of like, obviously some sort of condition, but I also have a third business. So me and one of my best friends who I used to work with, we set up a company called Brewing Trade. Now it operates at the moment very similar to the Lupulin Exchange, but for Europe. Okay. So we basically, brewers can buy and sell hops on there, but the goal is also to expand that well beyond hops, hence why it's called Brewing Trade. So we'll be adding in like yeast, equipment, malt, etc. So brewers can buy and sell anything that is they no longer need to another brewery who needs them. So that's also taking up a bit of my time. When I'm not doing those three things. I also run a lot. So I've been running. It's kind of like my happy place. I've been running for nearly my whole life, and I go on like nice big long runs, and I truly, truly enjoy it. It's my, it's not often in this modern society. I'm gonna sound like my dad here, but like this modern society where you're not in front of a screen, or you're not getting notified, or someone doesn't want your attention. Right? Get this a lot. My phone's always pinging, and it's like constant like fight for your attention. Computer screens, social media, TVs, always something. But when I'm running, it's just like everything is off. So I can just go running for a bunch of hours and really enjoy that. So I do that a lot. I also climb, just do some rock climbing here in London. So nice. It's all in climbing walls. It's more of a winter activity, but there are a couple of outside parts. Some of them I go to. What else do I do? Well, football, of course, being from England, big part of my life. So Leicester City fan, because I'm from Leicester originally. Okay. So that's how we do sports. It's where you're from. Not just who's winning. And then although we're actually so bad at the moment, I might change that and I start supporting someone else for 5 minutes, because it's truly exhausting. And then, do you know what? Also, it's a big part of this country. It's just going to the pub, It's where all of my mates, where everyone hangs out. It's when I've been, since I was like 14, 15, and, that's where people socialize. We play pool, we play darts. Me and Azlan played darts together.
I was going to say, Chris gave me some great pointers on darts. I've been throwing them wrong my whole life. And,
do you know what? I've never it's just so funny to me. Whenever I go to like anywhere in North America, I'm like, who teaches these people to throw darts? It's like
mostly
people like,
television,
it's like coming it from like, people are throwing it from the hip, it's like, like we have a very distinct style.
Yeah. Even after quite a few pints, Chris got me like actually getting where I wanted.
There you go.
So this is the key, Azlan, right? The key to darts is the right amount of pints. You're really bad at the start. Then about 3 or 4 in, it's inexplainable. You get really, really good. You get really good at darts. And then 6 or 7, you get absolutely drop off the cliff and you get even worse than you were at the start.
That's like me with golf.
But there's like a really finite period of where you get really, really good at darts for like a few pints. It's the dream.
Yeah, people often say that here about like playing pool, or it's like you call it billiards. I think it's like the same thing. It's like, shooting pool. Need a few beers, loosen up, relax.
Yeah, it's that you just loosen up, relax, and it's just everything. Stop thinking so much.
Together. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this. It's been pretty seamless all the way across the pond here. It's been nice.
I know, yeah. Well, you've got to edit it, Darren, so you can tell me if it wasn't seamless or not. But
we'll find out in post.
Yeah, we'll find out.
It's been great. Yeah.
No, it's a pretty mega time difference. So I appreciate you guys as well.
No, this was okay for us. We had one podcast where we made someone stay up till midnight for us, but this has been pretty manageable. Yeah. Easier for us. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks. If you want to see what Chris is doing, check out the Modern Brewer podcast. You can find it, I'm sure, on all your major podcast apps, and Brew Resourceful. If you want to learn more about how to, make the most of your ingredients and cut down on losses and tell your boss how much money you saved, then there you go. Check it out. Do some good work for the planet at the same time. If you want to support our podcast, let folks know about it. Just tell your friends, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And we're also going to be posting when these episodes are released on there. And if you want to support Azlan and I specifically, you can go buy our beer wherever good beer is sold. Main Street Brewing beer, Neighborhood Brewing beer, and Yellow Dog Brewing as well. Anything else, Azlan?
No, that's everything. Thank you so much. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Chris. It's always good to get together and have a couple beers.
I'm glad I have a contact now, and I'm in the UK or London. I'll
man.
drop you a line.
Absolutely. Honestly, just drop me a line. I'll take you around all the breweries here, in as many as we can go see. Sounds good. Anytime. You're welcome anytime. And you also got a place to stay. We've got a spare room here. So if you guys need a place to stay, because trust me, London ain't cheap.
Yeah, right.
So you'll first be like, maybe I'll take it off, and then you'll see the hotel prices. You're like, Oh yeah, I'm coming to stay. It's absolutely fine, man.
I'll bring the beer.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. No, thanks so much, guys, and also,
Yeah.
thanks for that taking me around Main Street and everything, Aslan. When I was over in Van with my friends, we had an absolute blast. It was a great evening. Do you know what? Actually, I need to put an announcement out to all your listeners because I went to a bar, which I can say this now because I think I'm unashamedly can say it, but I went to this rock karaoke bar. What was it? It was Funky Winker Beans or something.
Yeah.
So I went there till till some very silly hour in the morning. I was on holiday for the record, but someone stole my Modern Brewer podcast hoodie.
Unbelievable.
So like, if anyone sees anyone walking, because there's only one in existence, right? And that was it. That was the only one that ever lived. So if someone sees someone walking around Vancouver with a Modern Brewer podcast hoodie, please let me know, because I kind of want it back. But also, like, kind of would be cool to have like a walking advert walking around Vancouver. So I was just kind of curious of who would take such a random niche of merch. But yeah, it was taken.
There you go.
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a cultural experience, though. As well.
Yeah.
An experience is exactly how I woke up. I was like, that was I woke up, I was like, my mate I was with was like, that was a real experience. I was like, that was exactly what that was. It was an experience.
Awesome. Nice. Wow. We'll draw it to a close here, but thanks everyone for listening, and thanks Chris for doing this. Keep an eye out for that hoodie, and until next time, cheers.
Thanks so much, guys. Cheers.
See you.